Alright, so here we are with the second part of our tutorial on drawing a space scene and animating it. I've got my rocket right here, and you can see my planet, stars in the background, all that good stuff. I do have to pre-apologize real quick. There's going to be a little bit of background noise because I'm sitting outside because it's just too nice to be inside, honestly. That's the beauty about laptops. You can be outside. So there might be a little bit of background noise, but everything should be good here. So I've got my rocket set up on 3 different layers: the fins, the window, and my rocket. I have my planet on one layer, stars on another layer in the background. Now if you don't have this scene set up, look back at my other tutorial on how to create this scene to where you can get something similar to this. What I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and start with animating my rocket. And the total full animation here is we're going to have our rocket in the bottom left hand corner. It's going to be staying in place, although we're going to move the background and whatnot to make it look like the rocket's flying through space. We'll add a little bit of fire behind it using our Art Deco tool, which we saw earlier in some of the earlier lessons. But so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to select all of my rocket layers. You'll see I've got my rocket layers unlocked. I'm going to select the entire rocket here, and I'm going to go ahead and convert it to a symbol. So if we go to Modify and Convert to Symbol, call it a rocket. What this does is I'm going to convert it to a movie clip. It's going to store it in my library to where I can use it over and over again if I need to. But it's also going to merge everything together to where we can go in and edit it later if we need to. But it'll just keep all of my layers together, and it gives me the option to go through and animate it later if I wanted to as well. So it does move everything to one layer, so I can delete the other layers that nothing's on. Change this layer to rocket. And then I'm going to come through here, I'm going to click on my rocket, hit Q on my keyboard to resize it. And I'm going to scale it down a little bit. There we go. So now we have a rocket floating out there in the middle of space. Let's go ahead and put some fire on this rocket. Let me add a new layer for that. And call it fire. And for my fire here, it's going to give me about 55 or so keyframes going out to the right hand side. And what that'll do is, that's how you animate. The keyframes go from left to right. We'll be going over all of that in this tutorial, just kind of the basics on it. But instead of cluttering up my main timeline here with a bunch of keyframes of just fire, I'm going to go ahead and create a blank movie clip, and then I'm going to put the fire inside of that movie clip. So if I come up here to insert a new symbol, and I'm going to call it fire. Again, you want to make sure the type is a movie clip, and I'll say OK on my keyboard. What this does, it creates a new movie clip. You'll notice that our timeline is now reset. It just says layer 1 right here. We can go ahead and rename that to fire as well, to keep all of our layers named. And it's completely blank canvas, so creating a movie clip gives us a new canvas that we can work inside of. And you'll see whenever you have objects in there, it works kind of like groups, to where you can double click inside of the objects to edit the objects inside of it. So that you'll kind of see that in a minute here though. Right now we're just set up with a blank movie clip though. This is our 0 point. And if I come over here, I'm going to grab my Art Deco tool, which is K on your keyboard, I believe. My computer's thinking. There we go. U on your keyboard, I'm sorry. I'm going to grab that and go over to my properties and change that from Vine Fill to there we go. Sorry about that, my computer's freaking out on me. Change that from Vine Fill to a fire animation. Everything's fine here, 50 frames long, all that kind of stuff. Go ahead and change Fire Spark from 5 down to 0. And then right here in the center, go ahead and just click and let the animation play out. So what it's doing now is it's creating 50 different individual frames that makes up kind of a fire look. So you have those flames going and whatnot. Now you'll notice towards the beginning though it kind of slowly goes in. We're going to deal with that in just a second. Let's go ahead and go back and click on scene 1 though. You don't have to do anything to save it or anything, it's just there. And we'll come over to our library, grab that fire movie clip and drag it out onto your stage on the fire layer. There we go. So that's dragged out here. I'm going to go ahead and lock my rocket layer to make sure I don't mess anything up. And if you hit Q on your keyboard, you'll bring up your free transform tool. Go ahead and kind of resize that and rotate it so that it fits with your rocket ship. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and test out the animation. If you hit Control Enter on your keyboard, it will test it so that you can see what it currently looks like. So I'll hit Control Enter. And you'll notice you have the fire going, but every once in a while the fire flickers out and it's starting over from the beginning like I was showing you in the movie clip. Now we want this to be a continual looping animation, so I'm going to go ahead and make the fire to where it doesn't have that beginning start right there, to where it'll help it, make it look like it's looping a little better. And to go in and edit that movie clip, you can double click on the movie clip that's currently on your stage. So if I double click on this, it'll bring me inside of that movie clip, and you can edit it how it looks on the stage. Or you can come over to your library and you can double click on the movie clip inside of there as well, and it brings you to the original movie clip here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll go through and find where it just starts to get nice and big. Looks like about frame 15, and then I'm going to click and drag and select all of the previous frames. And if you right click on your keyboard and we'll say cut frames or remove frames, it's going to completely remove those frames so that we just have a nice steady fire. So if you go ahead and test that again, Control Enter on your keyboard will do that. You'll see it's just a continual burning flame. And this combined with the moving planet and moving stars will make it look like our rocket is flying through space. So I'm going to go ahead and close that down here. Hop back over to scene 1. And I'm going to save my project. Alright, so now that we have a continually burning flame underneath our rocket here, let's go ahead and work on moving our planet first. I'm going to lock that fire layer, unlock the planet layer, and we're going to start animating actually on this timeline, so we won't be putting things in movie clips anymore and doing that. I'm going to scoot my planet over to the upper right hand corner here. And then to create an animation, you'll notice one thing with the fire, let me click on this here, is that you see all these circles inside of here. Those are all multiple keyframes. So the way the fire animation is created is there are individual frames set up, kind of like the old storyboarding that Disney used to do and even still does occasionally, but to where they would go through and you draw one picture and then draw another picture, and then there were just a ton of pictures in between. That's what all these little keyframes are. It's like going through and having to draw out every little frame individually. What we're going to be doing is setting 2 main keyframes, and then Flash is going to do the rest of the work for us as far as making that animation happen. So to do that, we'll come through here and let me grab my planet layer. We're going to right click on that first frame of the planet layer and say Create Motion Tween. It's going to tell you it must be converted to a symbol in order to tween it. Go ahead and say OK there, and you'll notice that it converts it to a symbol in our library. If you wanted to rename that symbol, you can do that, because symbol 1 isn't obviously very descriptive, so we can call this our planet. And then what we'll do is starting at frame 1, you'll see that there is a little circle right there showing you that there's a keyframe. And our planet is in the upper right hand corner. We're going to hop over to frame 24. Let me zoom out a little bit. And I'm just simply going to drag my planet from the upper right hand corner to the bottom left hand corner. Now what this is going to do if we test it is you'll see the planet move across the screen diagonally. You'll notice that there's another little circle right here showing that there is a keyframe, and that everything in between, there's nothing showing, but it's doing all that work for you to where it actually animates that planet. Let me go ahead and hit Control Enter on my keyboard, and you'll see this planet moving across our screen. Now we did lose the rest of our scene whenever we did this, which obviously we want to keep our rocket inside of there. So what we need to do is come back here and looking at frame 1, everything's there, but there's no frames extended out to frame 24. So I'm going to come over to frame 24 and hit F5 on my keyboard. What F5 does is extends out the frames without creating a motion tween or going through and creating a new keyframe. All it does is it extends those frames across the timeline to where you can still see them, even though there's no animation happening. So once you get them all extended out, and again that's just clicking on frame 24 and hitting F5 multiple times, go ahead and hit Control Enter on your keyboard again, and you can see it looks like our rocket is actually going past this planet. Now our rocket would be going extremely fast to be having that planet in the background zooming that quickly. So let's go ahead and slow down that planet layer. To slow it down, you'll want to extend the frames, because if you remember with video editing and whatnot, frames per second, your eye can see 29.97. On the web, 24 frames per second looks great. But what that means is that for every 24 frames that pass, 1 second will have passed on the timeline. So if I wanted more time to pass between the first and the ending frame, I would have to click and drag this. Just pull it out to 100 here. That way my ending point is at 100, my starting point is at 1, and we can look down on here on our timeline and see that's going to be 4.1 seconds long. Alright, so let me go ahead and extend out my other layers, just hitting F5 on your keyboard again. Hit Control Enter, and you'll see that planet is coming by nice and slowly now. And it looks like our rocket's actually kind of flying through space. The final thing we'll need here to give it that real kind of depth with the flying through space is let's go ahead and go through and animate our stars. So what I want to do is lock my planet layer. I'm going to unlock the stars layer, and let's see what we have to work with right now. So I've got a few different blocks set up for my stars. I'm going to go ahead and select all of those. Let me just click on my layer here to select them all. And I want to convert all those to a movie clip so that I can go through and animate it. So I'll come up to Modify, Convert to Symbol, or it's F8 on your keyboard. And we'll call these stars. And the type is a movie clip. Say OK here. So what that does is converts the entire set of movie clips, there we go, or the entire grouping of stars to one large movie clip. And then I'm going to go ahead and double click on that, and I'm going to duplicate my stars. Just hit Control C on my keyboard and Control V to paste. And I think my computer's a little upset at me right now. But once I duplicate my stars, all I'm going to do is drag them over to the right hand side here so that I have two sets of stars and it's nice and long. Then I'll go back to scene 1, and you'll notice my movie clip is larger. I'm going to zoom out a little bit more because we're working with a lot larger of an area here, maybe not that much. Hit Q on your keyboard to bring up your free transform tool. Oh, my computer's mad at me. There we go. Alright, let me rotate this. And so what we're going to do here is set these stars up to where, just like our planet, it's going to be animating downwards, but we're going to start with the stars that are in there and try to end with the same constellation of stars on the right hand side. So if you remember, we duplicated those stars. Now if we do that starting and ending point to where it's at the same thing, it'll look like it just continually loops. So that's kind of the goal that we're going for here. So let me go ahead and hit F8 on my keyboard here. Or did I already convert it? I already converted it to a movie clip. Alright. So we have it converted to a movie clip. Let's go ahead and right click on that frame and say create motion tween. It converts our layer right here to a motion tween to where we can go through and edit the layer. And we'll actually be able to animate this. Alright, let me click on frame 100. And then once you click on frame 100 on this, once it's converted to a motion tween and whatnot, I can go through and just click and drag this layer. But when I do it, I want to kind of pay attention to the stars, constellations, to try to get them to match up with how it was on frame 1. Let me zoom in here so I can see it better. So I'm going to concentrate. I've got this kind of blob of stars right there. And the goal is to get that same blob of stars there on frame 100 after you've moved these a little while. So let me go ahead and move mine down. Kind of see that little blob right there. Alright, so I'm going to move it about where they're at. And then if you just hop back and forth between frame 1 and frame 100 and kind of keep your eye on this area right there where that blob is at. And I'm going to check and see, okay, so on frame 100 it jumps up and to the left, so I'll move it down and to the right. Keep in mind you want to get these to match up as closely as possible. Alright, looks like we just need to go down a little bit. I'm going to use my arrows to never mind, the computer's not happy with me right now. Use my arrows to pull it down just slightly. So what this should do is when we go through and test it, you're going to see the stars moving in the background as well. And because they're lined up exactly, it should basically overlap to where there's no, I guess there's no kink in the loop. If you control enter on your keyboard, you can see you have your planet moving, your stars moving. And it should continually loop. Pretty darn close. Okay. And if you wanted to, again, give it a little bit more depth here, go ahead and close out of this one. You could come through and I could readjust my planet so that my planet's moving a little bit faster than my stars. And if I test that out, it just gives you a little bit more depth as far as what's happening with the rocket ship and the stars and the planet and all that going on. So go ahead and try to get your scene to look as much like this as possible. Whenever you're done with that, if you could go through and animate your alien as well, so that your alien, you can see here, is kind of cool because you can see where the planet goes and whatnot. But animate your alien ship, make it coming out of a different area and kind of doing a little drive-by of your other ship as well. But if you could do all of that, get it ready. And if you are watching this tutorial and you're in my class, go ahead and upload that to the Dropbox file so that I can see it completed. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at john@simple.com or give me a call at 281-401-9321. Thanks a lot.